We're back, hour two, Big Board Sports. Roger Weiler with you on ESPN Radio, 104.5. The Team. We're getting set for the second half of the Major League Baseball season, and everyone's talking about Aaron Judge, right? He's been the story. Aaron Judge, face of Major League Baseball. Is he really? Is he the only face of MLB? We're talking with Barry Svrluga from the Washington Post, national baseball writer, with a great column on this very topic. And Barry joins us here on Big Board Sports on 104.5 at Team ESPN Radio. Good morning, Barry.
How are you guys?
We're great, Barry. I appreciate a few minutes. Are you convinced that it is Aaron Judge and everybody else, or are there more than just one face to MLB right now?
Well, I think it's a little bit of maybe a more complex answer. I think that baseball is kind of a sport that has struggled to put faces forward, put individual stars out there in a way that the NBA has excelled at and the NFL has kind of excelled at. Baseball kind of has this, tradition built in the minor leagues and from generations ago that you hit a home run, you drop your bat, you put your head down, you circle the bases in a timely fashion, and you go back and get on the bench and grab your glove and go about your business. And it has, in a way, kind of discouraged and actively suppressed individuality, the kind of stuff, the kind of flair that would make people stars. So I think what you have with Judge in New York and playing for, in the biggest market, the most important market, and playing for the most iconic franchise in the sport, you have an opportunity to, whether he's the face specifically or there's a group of players all from a similar generation that could kind of collectively serve as the faces in individual markets and then across the country, you have an opportunity to shift the way baseball players carry themselves, the way they act on and off the field, not so that it's, look at me and a lot of egotistical behavior, but more in a way that frees them up to feel, okay about displaying emotion and that they're not going to rankle their teammates or opponents by, doing a major bat flip or something like that, or like Bryce Harper does, flipping his hair, or this stuff that kind of, finds its way to the internet and gets put on repeat over and over and over again. So Judge is in that group that could really push baseball into a different era of the way it handles itself and markets itself publicly.
Barry, who else is in your group? I know you wrote about Bryce Harper. You certainly throw Clayton Kershaw's name in the mix, as well as other players that could be on the same playing field as Aaron Judge right now in terms of the face of Major League Baseball.
Well, I think, baseball right now is such a provincial sport. It's really something where if your team is in the playoffs, or your team is in a pennant race, or even if your team is playing a Wednesday night game in May, you're kind of locked in on what's your lineup and how's the bullpen doing. And I'm an Indians fan, and I'm really aware of, hey, we've lost, 6 of 7. What's going on? It struggles a little bit to get people to watch, what we maybe grew up watching, like the Game of the Week or Sunday Night Baseball, or just a random game between two teams. So I think the challenge is to get players like Francisco Lindor in Cleveland and Carlos Correa in Houston and Giancarlo Stanton in Miami, players who are huge stars in their own markets, to be huge stars nationally. I think there's totally a critical mass of young players that are going to impact this sport for a long time. Harper's in there. Mookie Betts is in there. The list is pretty established. How do those guys become not household names in just Boston or Cleveland or Houston or Miami, but how are they household names so that people in San Francisco know Francisco Lindor and know what he does well and can compare what he does to what Carlos Correa does or what Didi Gregorius does or whatever. That's the kind of next step if baseball is going to kind of push forward in that regard.
Author of The Grind, Inside Baseball's Endless Season, Barry Svrluga with us here, national baseball writer for the Washington Post. Barry, you've been covering baseball for a while. I love this, that you were in San Francisco, man, when Bonds broke Hank Aaron's record. That must have been a really cool moment. But with your perspective as somebody who covers the game every day, I'd love to get your thoughts on this pace of play and some of the ideas that apparently are going to be implemented next year at the major league level in terms of a pitch clock, maybe limiting trips to the mound by a pitching coach. Do you see these as being really beneficial for the game?
I do, and I think, a couple of years ago at the beginning of the season, the union and the league got together and they agreed on just some simple rules that were, kind of self-policing. Don't step out of the batter's box if you haven't fouled off a pitch. You can take 1 foot out, readjust your batting gloves, get back in there. The timing of pitches is important. What they're trying to do, you're not going to change the strategy of, hey, it's 0-2, I'm going to waste this breaking pitch and see if I can get somebody to chase it. That stuff is not going to change. You want to cut down on the dead time. You want the pitcher, when the game comes back from commercial, to be ready to throw pitch one right at that moment instead of waiting another 30 seconds. So all of that stuff, I think, is important. I don't think the time of the game, the length of the game, matters as much as pace of play, how often you're throwing a pitch and doing something strategic, because every pitch is potential action. What you want to do is cut down on that stuff in between, the dead time.
So how about the clock, Barry? Are you okay with putting 20 seconds on the clock and the pitcher has to throw?
No problem with that. No problem. Because I think that if somebody who complains about it, you want to winnow those people out. You want these people focused on doing their job, doing it efficiently, being able to work within those time constraints. I don't have any problem in the world with a pitch clock.
Barry, for our Giants fans here in the area, NFC fans, I would like to get your take on the Kirk Cousins Redskins situation as somebody who I know has written about it in the past. Do you see a similarity between what Max Scherzer did and how he was able to really cash in by betting on himself? And by the way, I mean, it seems like he's earning all of that 210 now with your Nationals, and what Kirk Cousins is doing here. Apparently the Skins and Cousins willing to play this thing out to the end.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely a betting on yourself similarity between Scherzer and Cousins. I mean, Scherzer, the spring of his final season in Detroit, turned down, I don't remember what the number was. I think it was probably $180 million or something, and people were like, wow, how can you turn that down? You would be guaranteeing yourself just kind of a completely different life, and you wouldn't have to worry about it again. And obviously he turned that into, the biggest free agent pitching contract at that time, since overtaken by David Price. And like you said, amazingly, he's earning it 2.5 years in. The Cousins situation is a little different, because when the Redskins could have pursued signing him for the first time to a long-term deal, he had not proven himself to the level that Scherzer had. Now he has another really solid season under his belt, and it's not over yet. They could still work to something long-term in the next few days, but it feels like that Kirk Cousins is going to be playing on that franchise tag for the second straight year. And then, he's going to be able to take offer his services to 32 teams, of which the Redskins are only one. So it's hard to see him getting to free agency and then coming back here anyway after all of that. It's a situation that has kind of, dominated sports talk in Washington for the better part of 18 months.
Barry, we appreciate a few minutes. Great stuff. Author of The Grind, Inside Baseball's Endless Season. Barry Svrluga with us here on Big Board Sports. Thanks so much, Barry. Great work.
Appreciate you having me.